What is up, kinfolk? How y'all doing? So I went ahead and I watched a interview of Margaret Sanger back in 1957 with 60 Minutes, and it wasn't a bad interview up until this point.
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born. That, to me, is the greatest sin that people can commit.
So I've heard, Margaret Sanger has very racist history and, racial, things about black folks that, and other ethnicities. I've decided to go ahead and review this. There's like a new segment where they go into the history of Margaret Sanger. So without further ado, let's get into it.
One thing they don't talk about is the racism behind her fight to legalize abortion. A group of African-American leaders want to focus attention on her ideology and how it affected black birth rates. Abigail Robertson has more on this story.
Margaret Sanger strived for a society that limited births to only those...
Okay, let's read this. The most merciful thing that the large family does to one of its infant members is to kill it. That's not too far off from what she said in her interview. Birth control itself, nothing more or less than the facilities... wow, I can't read. Facilitation, Jesus, the process of weeding out the unfit, of preventing the birth of defectives or of those who will become defectives. Okay. We do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. Ooh. Oh, well, there we go.
She deemed fit to have children.
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born. That, to me, is the greatest sin.
And I mean, even when she says marked, what marks a person? So I mean, if we're talking about her saying what it like, for the Negro population, I would say that, yeah, that's probably one of the markers, because how does one define a marker of someone who's going to become a prisoner or, a criminal?
Many pro-choice advocates see her as a hero, but critics call her a racist eugenics promoter who targeted black communities with her Planned Parenthood clinics.
Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, once said, colored people are like weeds, they need to be exterminated.
People don't understand that 79% of Planned Parenthood clinics are located in minority communities, and that minority communities shoulder a disproportionate amount of abortion.
Dr. King says while African Americans make up only 13% of the U.S. population, over 30% of aborted babies are from black mothers.
Under the veil of secrecy and deception, 60+ million babies have not been born because they were aborted legally since '73. 1/3 of that population belong to the African American community.
Planned Parenthood recently celebrated
when was that? Since when?
They were
are from black mothers.
under the veil of secrecy and deception. 60+ million babies have not been born because they were aborted legally since '73. 1/3 of that population belong to the African American community.
Planned Parenthood recently celebrated its 100th anniversary, prompting pro-life leaders to unite under the banner 100 No More to educate the public on the harmful impact Planned Parenthood has had on the African American community. 100 No More hope rallies like this one in Washington spread across the country to enlighten people about Sanger and her tragic legacy.
I have a real serious concern about the number of abortions that's taking place in the minority community, particularly the black community. And that I see this as a form of genocide. That is something we need to take a serious look at.
Planned Parenthood receives around $500 million each year from taxpayers.
96% of the time, if a pregnant woman walks into their clinic, that she will have an abortion.
Pro-life advocates want Congress to move that money to women's clinics that do not perform abortions.
They outnumber already around the country Planned Parenthood clinics 20 to 1. They truly help poor women They truly care for the least of these, but they don't do abortions.
Reporting from Washington, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Let me see. I actually want to get an actual quote. The one that she said about human weeds, let me see. Hold on. I haven't found a direct quote saying that she is 100% for killing out human weeds, but interestingly enough, there were calls to remove her from her own Planned Parenthood clinics. So let's go into that one. So this is from USA Today. Was it 2020? Yeah. This is during like the year we were taking down statues and stuff like that. For those identifying historical figures with racist roots who should be removed from public view because of their evil histories, Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger must join that list. In promoting birth control, she advanced a controversial Negro project, wrote in her autobiography about speaking to a Ku Klux Klan group, and advocated for a eugenics approach to breeding, the gradual suppression, elimination, and eventual extinction of defective stocks, those human weeds which threaten the blooming of the finest flowers of American civilization. So she doesn't necessarily call out black folks as human weeds, but to her other points, which she said a lot, is, there are markers. My question is, and one might assume the marker that she's talking about is maybe African Americans. She talked about people who are mentally disabled or physically disabled, people who are prisoners. But all that stuff has to be like, what are markers for that, right? Now, currently in society, we understand there are no markers for how someone's going to become a criminal or prisoner or not. But back in the day, one might assume she was talking about black folks. Moving down in the article, more than 300 former and current employees of Planned Parenthood that said in an open letter noting a toxic environment, Planned Parenthood was founded by a racist white woman that is part of the history that cannot be changed. They observed writing that the pattern of systemic racism plays inequality and a lack of upward mobility for black staff. Interesting. So even the black folks that work for Planned Parenthood and believe in the actual, message of it can't even move up. That's interesting. The vast majority of abortion vendors have set up shop in minority neighborhoods. I did know about that. Though they are only 13% of the female population, African Americans made up 38% of all abortions tracked in 2016. Okay, so this is where I play devil's advocate. Because understandably, she has deep and racist roots. But Margaret Sanger isn't dragging these women down to these clinics. Granted, they are being targeted. I would say that they are targeting people by setting up shop in these places. What's making all of our black women end up at the point where they are getting abortions? I think that that's the biggest thing that needs to be addressed. I'm all for, like they said, reallocating funds to maybe clinics that don't necessarily deal with abortions but deal with reproductive health, educating women on birth control as well as condoms, giving that out for free can eliminate the fact of an abortion happening if they at least have that. But I think that's the biggest issue. Before we even have them at a clinic, we got to deal with why is it that 38% of our women are seeing this as no other choice but the only choice to go ahead and abort their children. Yeah, I think if we push towards better education, both for reproductive health as well as in schools, as well as, just teaching girls to be safe, having a structure in the home, not a lot of single mothers, and actually having the old school family structures and how we stayed together back in the day, I think we'd be more successful. But let me know what you guys think. What are some solutions to this problem that you guys can think of that I haven't even said in the video? As always, kinfolk, I love y'all, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.